So one of the biggest questions everybody asks me whenever they talk about Turo is what's the best car for Turo? And it's hard because some people have $500 maybe for a down payment, some people have $4,000, some people have $10,000, and some people have $100,000 and they just need something for a write-off, but they're all different. And the only thing that's consistent between them all, I think, are the rules that I follow. So I think everybody's different, but I'm gonna show you all the rules that I try to follow for buying any car for Turo, and it's helped me by a long shot. I mean, if I started using these rules in the beginning, I would have saved a ton of time, a ton of money, and probably wouldn't have made as many mistakes as I did. All right, so the first rule that I look at is return on investment. And when people typically think about return on investment, they think about how much am I putting down and how much money am I getting back? But I don't see it like that. People try to compare it to the real estate market or the real estate game, but this is completely different. I wouldn't even try to compare these. I mean, you have one that is appreciating real estate for the most part. I mean, given an average lifespan, and then you have cars which depreciate no matter how much you like them. I mean, there's certain ones that will, but for the most part, they all depreciate, and some a lot more than others. And that's one of the other rules, but we're gonna get into that later. But let's talk about ROI and some of our cars and look at true numbers. So let's just take a minivan, for example, right? We have Chrysler minivans, and we got each one of them, we have two of them right now, for $20,000, okay? That's not bad. Chrysler minivan, brand new, maybe 30, 40, 50,000 if it's like maybe maxed out. So 20,000, not a bad investment. On that 20,000, we're making anywhere gross revenue. I'm gonna be talking about gross revenue right now. 800 to 1,500 a month. And obviously that's a big spread. In Arizona, we have summer months, which nobody's traveling here. A car like this, you're gonna have families buying it. And then in the busy months, all the families are here, spring break, and they're willing to spend top dollar. So $800, $1,500 a month, right? All right, so let's compare it to a car that we initially started with. When we got started, we were buying Ford Fiestas, Ford Focuses, and they were doing us well because they're so cheap and they had high return on investment. But let's take a look at those numbers. So with a Ford Fiesta, you're looking at, you could probably buy 3 of those. I mean, easily. We're buying each one from, our cheapest one was $5 grand and our most expensive was 12 grand. So you could probably buy, let's just call it 3 Fiestas. I mean, these aren't gonna be brand new. They're not gonna be super low miles, but they're gonna be fairly new, fairly low miles, good condition, okay? And I'm sure you could get away with 20,000 for 3 of them. I mean, just because we've done it before. Maybe you can get 4 if you get them for $5 grand a piece. They got 70,000 miles, they're 2013s, 14s, but a little newer, lower miles, let's say you can get 3 for 20, okay? Each one of those Fiestas, on average, as then this is what we've seen, is doing $1,000 a month for over the course of a year here, okay? So now let's take a look at this, and we have top is $1,500 for the month. And then for this one, you're talking about $3,000. You know, given you have 3 cars, you have 3 times as much maintenance, but you still have a $1,500 gap between these 2 cars. So that's kind of what I mean. And the rules go even further than that, because not only do I look at stuff like this, which is which one has a higher return on investment off of gross revenue, and there's maintenance and stuff, we're gonna get into that, because you have to look at bottom line, your net. Another thing I look at is if I wanna spend more money, maybe I want to buy something that's 20,000, or maybe I want to buy something that's 30,000. How close can I get to the rule of having like $1,000 every 10,000 or $1,000 every 8,000 to that? Obviously, when you're buying a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 car, you're not going to get that exact metric. I mean, a $50,000 car is not making $5,000 a month, but you can get closer. What I mean by that is like this. I mean, a minivan, this is a great example. So this $20,000 car, it's making us anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 a month. But I have a Chevy Tahoe, which is a little more expensive. We spent $28,000 on it, so almost 50% more. But that car in 1 month, it made us $7,000. Over the course of the year, it's probably gonna make us $25,000, maybe 30. When you look at those 2 numbers, that's what I'm looking at. I'd rather obviously spend a little more, get the Tahoe, make more money, than spend less and have, you know, a smaller metric. I mean, bottom line is best return on investment, and then as I increase in scale or price of car, still trying to keep the mentality of I can spend 40, 50 grand looking at all these cars. What's the best return on investment for these cars? So that's something really important to take a look at. Next one is depreciation. This one is something that nobody follows. Like, nobody really cares about. And it's surprising because people will get excited. They'll buy the car of their dreams, the car they really want. I mean, people use this business model as a way to get into cars that they really like. And they don't think about depreciation. They don't care because they're driving such a cool car and they're renting it or they're owning it for free. Then they get to the end of their Turo journey, which is like 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years in, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. but they don't realize that they overpaid for it. They overpaid by tons, so when they get rid of it, it's worth way less and you're underwater. So then what? Then you're stuck. Then you have to keep renting it out, or you have to keep making the payments on a car that you're underwater on. So the best thing to do when you're looking at depreciation is there's apps like CarEdge, there's other websites that'll literally show you the graph of cars and show you when they depreciate, specifically what years, what miles. Follow that. I mean, if you have a car that's depreciating 10% a year versus 5% a year, I mean, that's a huge difference. You're talking about twice the amount of depreciation. And if you're talking about, and a lot of this kind of goes together, like if you have a car that, you know, if you're looking at these two examples, and, you know, this one is making 800, this one's making 1,000, but let's just call it twice the price. But your depreciation on, let's say this one is like 3 times the amount and maintenance is more, like maybe I'm gonna take this one. So when you look at these rules, it's not you choose one and you stick to it. You have to take all of them into consideration, because one may be really, really good ROI, or one may be really good in depreciation, but it's really bad in other things. So you have to keep into consideration all of these rules that I'm about to go over. So depreciation, low. That's all I'm gonna put here. Just low depreciation cars, that's it. And you can follow the curve too. I mean, typically when you buy a car initially, immediate drop off. I mean, because you're buying them over MSRP, you're buying them overpriced. So they immediately drop off. There's a huge gap between year 1 and year 2, or technically year 0, which is brand new, and year 1. And everyone's trying to buy brand new cars. They think they're Hertz and Enterprise, which people don't realize. Hertz and Enterprise are getting so much money off of MSRP, off of what the dealers are getting them for, that it makes sense. Like they can go around and sell it in 6 months to a year and break even, maybe make money. But these people are trying to buy brand new cars from dealerships, spending way too much, thousands of dollars over MSRP, or even MSRP, and they're spending more than where they could get it, and then they depreciate a lot, and then they're just stuck. So just don't get stuck. The next thing I think is really important is how you buy. This kind of falls into depreciation a little bit, because if you buy it wrong, and I always talk about dealership because that's the biggest way people buy wrong, you're screwed. I mean, you immediately made, in my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Because let's think about it, right? Let's say you buy a car right. You buy it under what it's worth. You rent it out for a year. Let's say the ROI is not great. Maintenance isn't that great. So, you know, it costs all this money. Maybe you break even, okay? You went through a year, you broke even. You put in some work, you broke even, that's not good. But if you buy a car wrong, let's say you buy a $100,000 car, and I've seen stuff like this. You buy a $100,000 car, you pay 120, 130. I mean, look at the cyber trucks. People were paying high 100s, low 200s for a 90. I think there's some for like 70 or 80 or 90,000, give or take, maybe 100,000 for the tri-motor. But you're talking about 2 times the price. I mean, you're talking about losing $100,000 immediately. Like right now, they're selling for, I'm pretty sure MSRP, maybe under. They've dropped heavy. So if you look at an example like that, you spend $100,000. First off, yeah, you can maybe make, like the wave of it was pretty initial. I mean, they were going for like 1,200 bucks a day. People were making 15 grand a month, but that's for a short stint. I mean, now they're only making a couple $1,000 a month, which is still good. But if you overpaid $100,000, it's going to take years for you to get out from underwater. I mean, and your payment's going to be so high that once you get towards the end, you're going to be negative in cash flow, and you're just going to be out. You're going to lose your shirt. I mean, by the end of that, you're going to have lost a lot more than you gained. So when you look at it, I think this is probably one of the most important rules, because if you buy right, a lot of bad things can happen, whether it's maintenance, whether it's ROI, maybe you calculated wrong, it doesn't have a really strong ROI, but if you buy it right, you can still be on top. I've had cars that I bought in 2 years ago, and I've sold recently, that I've sold for the price we bought it for, which is very common for us. Very common. Maybe we'll lose $1,000 on like a $20,000 car, maybe $2,000 at the most. I don't even think I've lost that much, but a lot of the times we'll make money. Like we had a 2012 Ford Fiesta. We held it for 2 years. Each year made $1,000 a month, and then we sold it at the end for like $8 grand. We made $3,000 on the back end, which is crazy. That's you buy it right, and it goes a long way. So I think the biggest rule in this is no dealerships. And I've heard about super rare, like people that have gotten super, super good deals. Maybe they know the owner, or maybe they really know one of the sales reps and they get like cost of the dealership, which is rarer than you think. Then there's other people that shop like nationwide and try to find a car. It's rare that you find somebody that's successful in buying cars from dealerships. So that's probably the biggest rule, is just buy it right. The way to buy it right is either private, so private party, or dealer auctions. Dealer auctions are where we buy cars. I mean, you're buying cars for what the dealerships are buying cars for to resell them, so that tells you that there's a margin in it. The only thing is you have to find somebody with a dealer license or get your own. It's not super hard to get your own if you get a wholesale license. If you get a retail license, we just got ours. It took like 2 months and a lot of work, but a wholesale is really easy. You can do it from your house. You have to apply. It's maybe a couple $100. I mean, it's really easy. You just have to get like a bond. It probably costs $500-600. But if you can buy cars at auction, the biggest thing is you have to get a post-sale inspection, just make sure that they're running right. You can have a lot of success. You still have to do research because people will overbid at auctions, but a lot higher opportunity at dealer auctions, even private party, because you can negotiate and people need to sell their car, than at dealerships. So that's where I would go, and that's where we go. We mainly go dealer auctions and then a little bit private party, but for the most part, all dealer auctions. The next rule is, I'm sure you guessed it, maintenance. Maintenance is a big one. A really, really, really big one. We have some cars that we don't own, they're vehicle partners, that have maintenance problems all the time. And there's two costs to maintenance problems. There's the cost of, okay, I have to replace this radiator or I have to replace this battery, that's $300-400. But then there's opportunity cost. I mean, if you're replacing, let's say a battery, I mean, battery's not hard, maybe half a day, but if you're replacing something big, it takes a week, a month to fix. You're talking about a month of revenue just lost. So now you're having to make the payment up, or you're having to not cash flow because you have a car that has a lot of maintenance. So those are the two biggest things. You're talking about opportunity cost, and then you're talking about the actual maintenance cost. So you have to look out for those. And it's pretty easy to figure that out. I mean, enough research, you can look up, is my 2014 Ford Fiesta reliable? What's the maintenance schedule? What's the biggest things that happen to it? When do the biggest things happen? You can look at the year, make, and the model, and then when those things happen. That's super important. And again, all these rules go together. If you have a perfect ROI, perfect depreciation, perfect buy, but then you have a really, really bad maintenance car that's in the shop more than it's rented out, that's not really a good buy. You're losing out on such a big piece. So again, all these rules go together. And they don't all have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to have the highest ROI, but you have to compare it to others. You have to have good ROI, good depreciation, or low depreciation. Buy your car right, low maintenance schedule. All right, so the last thing that I typically look at is holding. Excuse my handwriting. It's obviously very bad handwriting. What I mean by holding is how long you hold it for, and typically what this correlates with is either drop off in depreciation or increased maintenance. So typically some cars will have like a heightened maintenance schedule after like 100,000 miles, or they'll depreciate super heavy after like 6 years or after 2014 or something. So you have to kind of calculate that a little bit, and every car is completely different, obviously. So you have to figure out when the biggest problems for maintenance happen. Like, for example, Toyota Priuses, there's two major things that happen in Gen 2 Toyota Priuses. There's regenerative braking system that goes out. It's like $2,000 to $3,000 depending on who fixes it. And then the battery replacement, which is probably $2,000 to $4,000 depending on who replaces it and where you get it and stuff like that. But those are two big things, and those typically happen, I don't know exactly when, but it's after like 100, it's in between like 100 to 200,000 miles. So if you can know that in advance and not run into something like that, or know that that happens and then buy the cars that already have that fixed. So kind of two ways to play the game. And then also the depreciation. Those are all the rules that I have right now, and you can make up your own variations of them. I just think that they're so important to follow, just because any one of these can impact your business either really positively, or if you don't follow them, really negatively. So making sure you have really good return on investment cars. If you buy it for $20,000, you want to make as much money on that $20,000 as possible. And I'm not talking about down payment. I'm talking about cost of car total versus how much it grosses. And then in that, expenses, obviously, which is maintenance being the biggest one, and depreciation, I guess, as well. You want to make sure you have low depreciation. If you have a car that has really good ROI, but crazy low or crazy high depreciation, maybe it's not worth it to buy. You want to make sure you buy the cars right. If you don't, it can ruin your whole business model. I know, I was talking to this guy once. We're at some Turo meetup or convention or something, and he said that he had $1 million in cars. That's what he owed, which isn't, I mean, it's not crazy, but they're worth like $600,000. So he's to the point, he's like, I want to get out of this business, and he told me he's negative $400,000 in equity, and he was stuck. I mean, how are you going to pay that? It's impossible. So he had to ride it out, and if the cars like broke down or if they got in like accidents and totaled, he's on the hook for that. So he told me that, I just couldn't believe it. It's kind of scary, to be honest. And a lot of people do that. I mean, it's a lot more common than you think. So people do it. They're out there. Next is maintenance. Just make sure you have low maintenance costs, things that aren't super reliant on heavy maintenance. And then last thing is holding. Figure out when to buy them, when to sell them, how long to hold them for, what miles, what years. It's all super important. I promise if you follow all these rules, it's not going to guarantee success, but it's going to get you a lot closer to success than where you would be if you didn't have any rules or if you didn't follow stuff like this. So thank you for watching. I have a course talking about all this information, and it's really teaching people how to get into private rentals. Link below, and excited to see you in the next video. Thanks.